Hey, we're back.
Hey, everybody. How's everyone out there doing in podcast land? I am super kind of jazzed today because we get to kind of finish start and finish a conversation that kind of got started in Baltimore months ago. And it was kind of one of those things where like, all right, hold on. Come on the show and talk to us about it because you guys have a lot of cool stuff. It's been a while since you've been on, and we want to make sure that everybody's getting a good flavor of what you guys have to offer.
We brought in our two friends, Joe Gallo and Dave Godin from 908 Devices. Thank you for coming on. How are you guys?
Yeah, doing great. Thanks for having us on, guys.
Absolutely.
I'm not joking. I just got back 2 nights ago from teaching out in California at a government agency known for its prowess in the aeronautical area. And we were talking to them, and they're like, what is the status? And this wasn't even scripted. We didn't even talk about this beforehand, but they were like, what's the status? And I'm like, we are on the precipice of not knowing just categorization. I'm like, actual identification. I specifically mentioned your devices as like, we are on the change in mentality for for technicians. And I'm really excited about this stuff.
Yeah, technology evolves fast, right? And our field detection technology doesn't always keep up with that speed, but I think we've made some good efforts to catch up on this particular product.
Yeah. It's been, I would venture to say, with the exception of your XplorIR, right, and the 908 as small incremental measures within the grand scheme of things, there hasn't been a lot of detection change since shortly after the 9/11 period, and at least not enough to kind of flip how we do things on its head. But you guys have you're definitely there. You're definitely flipping on its head how we're doing what we're doing in the field.
Yeah, we have spent a lot of time specifically this year. A lot has changed at 908 Devices. We actually, at the beginning of this year, had a bit of a restructuring. We are now solely focused on our chemical detection and identification part of the business. So all of our first responders, Hazmat, EOD, military, law enforcement customers, which is really exciting for us. We have an excellent R&D team, excellent applications team, led by Dave and team, an excellent training team, and everyone dedicated to serving those customers. And I think the result is a lot of innovation. We love going out to shows and looking forward to attending your guys' show here in a few months and talking to customers and seeing truly what they need and what gaps they have in their toolbox and looking for creative and innovative ways we can fill those gaps. So, about 2 years ago, we added the FTIR capability with the acquisition of RedWave technology, which was really exciting. We had MX908 before, and we really have this toolbox approach now, which is great to be able to come and talk to you guys. And we know you saw VipIR down at IAFC, and that's sort of been the latest development and really excited to talk to you all about that.
So definitely talk to us about the VipIR, because we got to see it, but it was kind of one of those, like, you go to reach and touch and we got our hand slapped and it was like, no, you can't go anywhere near the VipIR. And I'm like, why? Is it going to bite me or something? So they're like, no, marketing won't allow. Okay, all right, fine. So give me the skinny of it now, because it was just sort of coming out in drips at the time.
Yeah, so I think you mentioned that technology over time has been pretty stable. So most teams have some version of FTIR and most teams have some version of Raman, right? These are two tools that were really like the original things that we brought to the field to answer the question of what is this stuff, right? And that was primarily 9/11 driven, when every white powder was absolutely going to kill you. And we needed to provide the answer for like, hey, what is this, right? It's probably not anthrax, but what is it, right? And so that's really what those tools were. That being said, they each have capabilities and limitations, and we're really used to using both of them to their strengths, but they often give conflicting answers, right? Particularly on some of these more challenging samples, and you're left working in between them. And so the VipIR really takes two of those classic tools and it combines them not into a 2-in-1, but actually in a 3-in-1 technology.
That's interesting because that's the approach that other places did, and they basically just took a ramen and an FTIR and like duct taped them together in the same box, and it was like, okay, that didn't really help me at all.
Right, you kind of run the sample, flip it over, run the sample. Yeah. So how does this VipIR change in that mindset?
But yeah, it's really it's not only the two technologies, the ramen and the FTIR, but it also combines them via some really cool algorithms. So it's not only having the technologies, we compare it to having like two experts running those technologies. So it would be like, Mike, if you were, every team has kind of their meter guy or gal. If you were the ramen guy and Bobby, you were the FTIR guy, and you both ran a sample and you got, you both got your answers, right? And then you put your heads together and talked. You said, well, I got this and I got this. And you said, okay, well, that makes sense, but this does, right? And you had that conversation with each other. And then you said, okay, we can be pretty confident that, this is what this sample is. The device is doing that for you via this algorithm on the back end. Wow. So it's using ramen and FTIR and then having that conversation with itself. So you're getting sort of that expertise, that conversation. It's validating sort of that approach. And on that result screen at the end, you'll actually see that in results. So you'll get, you analyze your sample and you might see, one result, you might see two or three, and you'll see a green check mark on, one result or two results or three results showing that both FTIR and ramen both saw that sample, or maybe one of them doesn't have a green check mark because only FTIR or only ramen saw that sample.
Okay. That's what I was going to ask. I'm like, what happens if Bob and Mike fight?
Yeah.
You kind of get that like little indication.
Who's got the winning vote?
Yeah, no, and absolutely. So, and that's so important, right? Because before you were left in between and trying to make those calls yourself. But the algorithm, to Joe's point, really synthesizes the data of both FTIR and ramen. It goes back and forth iteratively until it best explains the entirety of the sample. And what that's going to give you, to Joe's earlier point, is it's going to give you just a higher confidence answer, particularly in complex mixtures, particularly in the areas where there were differences, because you can actually leverage those disparities as algorithmic strength. And so you should get a more components in a mixture at a higher confidence rate. And where applicable, you're actually getting two disparate technologies to agree and get that sort of green check mark. That is, to your point, really the difference between early detection and really identification in the field.
For me, it's that sentence that means so much to me with this technology. And the reason I say that is because so many times we come across samples, they're dirty in the field, right? I'm not going to a lab and sampling something out of a bottle because, I don't know, a guy lost a label or something like that. Like the stuff that I'm getting in the field is mixed with other things. And that has been one of the downfalls to the technology is the mixture, is the contamination. Mm-hmm. So the fact that this has the ability to improve those kinds of searches, I think that's an absolute home run.
And I think that's really it, right? When it's a simple question, it doesn't take more than a simple piece of technology to answer it. And if we only had simple questions in the field, we wouldn't have to continue to iterate. 908 Devices is really focused on high-end chemical detection and identification, really answering some of those complex problems, right? With the MX908, trace analysis is challenging, right? It's not easy. Getting low component mixtures like fentanyl in street drugs and other mixtures, that's a complex task, and it requires more technology and more innovation. Conversely, with the VipIR, right, really we're taking two technologies to really leverage it at those complex problems and give you a good, confident answer for those places where before you had to really do a lot of work to figure it out.
Well, all right, so that's my question is like, now I remember back when that duct taped piece of equipment together, it was complex to do that sampling, like the interface. Right. So you had to know your tool, which I agree that everybody should know the tool, but it was in my mind, a layer of complexity that was not necessary.
Yeah. And so the VipIR really takes some of that out. So you certainly still have the non-intrusive ramen probe. So you can do all of the things that you know and love about ramen, right? You can get your answer through clear containers, semi-opaque containers where it's safe and appropriate to do so. But really the magic that we've been talking about, the smart spectral processing, the synthesis of the two technologies occurs when you do your analysis through the Diamond ATR that we normally associate strictly with FTIR. But in the VipIR, what we're doing is not just the FTIR analysis through there, we're also using the Raman laser at that exact same point. So you've got the exact same sample, place it on the Diamond ATR, you get your FTIR analysis of that particular sample, and the Raman is applied to that exact thing, so that you can actually compare apples to apples. Because if you just took two samples from two different points of a mixture, you're not analyzing the same sample. And it can be challenging to correlate those two things.
So one spot, double hit.
Exactly.
Right. Yep.
And that really makes it so you don't have to think as much about the workflow. One of the other advantages is that we can use FTIR first to pre-clear the sample for explosives and energetic materials before we apply the Raman. And this way, you're not only incorporating best practices, but you're also incorporating safety. So it's just a little bit less for the operator to remember and to hold in their heads at 2 a.m.
How do you do that? Like, how do you like, I don't want to say pre-screen, but how do you?
Yeah.
So realistically, we apply the FTIR first. It's going to do an initial review to identify whether or not it's one of the potential energetic materials which may react adversely to a Raman laser. Right at that point, we've already identified it with a fairly high level of confidence in the FTIR, and we'll offer the user to just go to the results screen on FTIR alone and review that. Realistically, FTIR is capable of detecting and identifying explosives just as well as Raman. We really just favor Raman because we don't have to interact with that sample, but FTIR is pretty capable in most circumstances. That being said, we didn't lock users out. So if you are one of those skilled users or you need more information out of the sample, you can still change those Raman laser settings. You can lower the energy. You can do the standoff time, and then you can apply the Raman to particularly complex mixtures and still get your answer on both technologies if you think that's safe and appropriate to do so.
One of the banes of my existence when it comes to Raman was always the fluorescence.
Right.
So how does the fluorescence play a role in all of this? Like, I can't imagine that it just fluoresces and the whole machine is like, no, screw it. Like, I can't figure this out. Like, what does it do? How does it overcome fluorescence?
That's one of the benefits in general to the VipIR approach and the combined FTIR, Raman, in smart spectral processing and the whole smart ID workflow is things like fluorescence, the energetic materials, polar compounds, all of these sort of fringe cases that are good for one technology and not the other. You can use this one method, and it's right. You don't have to remember, which ones of these samples are good for which technology, right? There's this whole, we talked about the conversation that has to happen after you get the results for one technology. You get your FTIR results, you get your Raman results, and that whole conversation. But what about the conversation on the front end of, which technology do I use when you have two different technologies? What's the sample? Well, if you don't know what the sample is, it's hard to know which technology to start with.
It's chicken and an egg.
So right. So part of the problem we solve with this workflow is it doesn't really matter what the sample is. This one workflow has a lot of these sort of fringe cases built into it. So if it is a highly fluorescent material that may have some adverse effects with Raman in it, that's okay because we have a higher probability of identifying it with the FTIR anyways. We do also have some algorithmic approaches that compensate for some fluorescence with the VipIR. So we actually do fairly well in general with the Raman alone through fluorescence on the VipIR. So even just as a standalone with Raman on the VipIR, and actually we will have I think later today. So as soon as we're done with this, we'll have some new content up on the website about our smart ID tech notes. If you want to geek out and read some more about like our fluorescence and true positive rate and stuff like that. So we do really well, even just as a standalone, but the workflow in general is really good for some of those fringe use cases of, which technology is best, because it's sort of doing that work of selecting which technology for you.
Yeah, it's not going, I think because we have both tools available, we don't need to bend ourselves into a pretzel to try to do it with just one technology. right? So we don't need to limp through fluorescence. We can use the FTIR. But to Joe's point, we also have some really good algorithmic compensation. So you're not going to see that, that sample time go from 30 seconds to 4,322 years, like an old download back in the early days of the internet, right? Like it just knows when to call it a day and move on with the analysis. So because we have all of these other tools available to us. That's the point of integrating things.
I would always get so excited when the ramen would tell me it was like 5 hours. I'm like, Chief, this is a huge overtime run. I'm sitting here and waiting.
Right, and honestly, like if you even work through the fluorescence, it's still not good quality data. Oftentimes, right? That's what it's telling you when you're getting high fluorescence is that it's going to be some struggle. And so realistically, FTIR was probably always the best tool for those circumstances. You can adjust the laser and the wavelength all you want, but FTIR would probably be better for most of those situations.
Well, I mean, I remember back in the day, and I'm talking way back like 9/11 area. The device would come out and be like, "We have 500 different materials we can invite."
Yes.
Yeah.
I can identify 3 different things. Yes.
But I don't know exactly, but I think you're coming up close to almost 6,000 things on the Explorer. I mean, what are you guys talking about in this thing, the VipIR?
So we have 39,000 spectra.
Wow.
That is FTIR and Raman combined spectra on the VipIR. There is some overlap there between the FTIR and Raman library, obviously, but 39,000 total spectra. And on the Explorer, it's we're getting close to 6,000. I think it's 5,600 and some odd.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, is there any like limit to how many? Do you ever see us getting to like 1 million things? Like, is that a possibility?
Yeah, and if you think about it, really what's happening there is the larger your library, right, the better your algorithm and processing power need to be able to search it, right? Like imagine if I told you had to go look through a literal library to find one book out of 500. You're like, that's going to be the whole day. Like, okay, same library, 39,000 books, right? You're like, well, I quit, right? So realistically, you need to make sure that your processing power, your boards, your device is able to keep up and utilize those libraries successfully. And that's one of the advantages of our product lines is that they are modern, right? Like they were built recently. They have modern boards in them. They're not 5-10-year-old technology. And so that allows us to grow our library size much larger and also utilize it effectively and search it and provide you an answer effectively in a short amount of time. And then there's also been a lot of advantages in algorithmic processing that allows that to also be expedited. And those are all sort of the modern things that you get when you have new tech.
Do you think there's a point in time where we jump off of local processing and start doing like cloud computing to be able to handle sizes of libraries and processing power in portable devices?
It's certainly possible.
I think
it's certainly possible. I think there are some people out there who are doing that or at least venturing into it now. There's, I think, certain challenges in the first responder community. Certainly, of you would hate to be on scene and not have service,
right,
or be able to access that. So there's certainly challenges with that approach as well. But yeah, there's definite possibilities that unlocks new capabilities, but also comes with certain challenges as well. So
since you guys are coupling these two things together, do you guys see like an improvement versus like independent? Like if I run it on a Raman and FTIR separately, are you guys seeing like almost like a force multiplier type effect on these things?
We are, yeah. And actually, I can't wait to get this tech note up on our website so you guys can see some of the data. But we're seeing like based on running FTIR or Raman alone compared to running on the VipIR, some different complex mixtures. We're seeing single digit up to like 20% increases on true positive rates for 2-3 component mixtures. So some pretty impressive results. We have a pretty solid extensive list of some different chemical component mixtures that we tested. So so some really relevant samples that Hazmat techs might expect to see. that are relevant and kind of show some of the capability of, you know, how we're getting a little bit more out of the 3-in-1 versus just, you know, two technologies put together. So
Wow.
it's
That's
pretty
a big
pretty
increase.
impressive stuff.
I don't think I really understood. Like, I knew that there were differences between the results and Ramen and FTIR. I'd encounter some in my operational life, but I don't really think I understood just how often that was happening and leaving me in the middle of that problem until we really started doing this VipIR development and testing. You're like, oh, this was a thing I've been working through without really understanding for a long time. And it feels really good to have a computer help me with that now, honestly.
You know,
Wow.
I think that's the hardest part of this concept of, you know, the VipIR is that we as a community don't know what we don't know that we're missing. So to come on and kind of clarify that, like, well, I don't think it's a big deal. I'll just run it on two separate things. Well, you're actually missing 20% of the piece of the puzzle if that is going to be how you want to operate. So it's pretty cool that that's coming together. One of the things that you guys have had that you've kind of expanded out, but you've expanded out quietly and haven't really talked much about it. I'd love to hear more about the Team Leader software. The software that kind of connects the 908 devices to somebody who knows a hell of a lot more than I do.
Yeah, I'll kick it off and I'll pass it to Joe because this is part of his baby as well. But to your point, right? Like, there's two parts to that operation. You got to get there, you got to get the answer, and then you got to get that answer off of your tech in a usable way and brief it out to everyone who is involved in the after of that incident, so that you can close it out, so you can do all your reports, so that you can send it to Reachback if you need to. And getting the information off of your meters can be as challenging as getting the right answer with them.
Oh, yeah.
And so we really sought to solve both problems through the Team Leader app.
Yeah, exactly. It's always great for you to know. There's always someone else who wants to know. And even, you know, we talk about getting answers out of the hot zone and sample answers. You can do a ton from looking at Spectra in the Team Leader app. There's a ton we're putting on there just from like a device management perspective. So Hazmat teams that, you know, we have a full toolbox of devices out there now. So if you have an XplorIR and you have a protector and now you have a VipIR and maybe you have a threat ID too, and you're trying to figure out, you know, when was the last time you ran your system check for all of them? Are they on the latest software? You can check all that in Team Leader too. So we have just a lot of stuff for device management. You can see things like, you know, when were samples run or where were they run? So even if you're, you know, back at the station, at the office, you can see, you know, where devices are in space, you know, what samples are being run, how often they're being run, things like that. And we're just continuing to build on that. So there's a ton of ton of data on these devices. And again, to Dave's point, you know, we've launched, you know, VipIR just this year. These are newer devices with cell Wi-Fi capability, so we can get all sorts of data from these devices if customers want to. If not, that's obviously perfectly okay too. But we can do all sorts of neat stuff with the data that's useful for customers. So we're talking with customers on an almost daily basis and seeing, you know, what they find useful or what they would like to see or not see, and just seeing, you know, how we can provide more value with that data from their mobile app. Yeah, through Team Leader.
Like fleet management for
all of your devices are talking to this backend. You can consolidate the information. You can review Spectra. You can pull down Spectra and email it to other individuals. You can generate reports, put your logo on it, change the incident number, and just do all of the things that you need to do with your results faster, more easily. Right?
We were lucky enough to be in a department that had like almost every meter under the sun, right? And one of the things is we ran a lot of samples, and it really was a lacking thing where, okay, the run's over, we're going to go back to the firehouse, and I want to hot wash this thing, and I want to report and do an internal drill and stuff. It was really, really hard to pull that off once you were done with the run.
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely. Right. Yeah. And so to that point, like, we don't know what the particular customer, you know, security protocols are. Everyone has a different. So for VipIR in particular, really what we did was we put all options on the table, right? It's got Wi-Fi, cellular, LTE. You can pull off via the SD card, via USB. You can cable connect it. Or if any of those things freak out your security team and they're not allowed, you can disable most of those. And so it's really about just creating the options so that your organization can customize your tech and use it in accordance with your protocols, not get forced into the way that we think you should use it.
My mind's blown.
I have a final question that I get asked all the time.
Yeah.
And maybe you guys can start to kind of piece it together. I have my own way of answering, but I'd love to hear from you guys how. And it often starts with this. We're sitting in class, or it's the end of the class, and somebody comes up, usually, a company officer or something, and they go, okay, we are extraordinarily limited in our funding, but we want to start buying these sets of tools from 908, but we can't buy them all at once. We have to wait year after year for the grant funding. Which ones do I go for first? And what order should I start looking at building this toolbox?
Yeah. So, I mean, from my perspective, right, I think as we discussed, FTIR and Raman, they are tools that we have, right? Depending on when you acquired those and, what their age is, it may be time for a tech refresh, in which case you're going to love the VipIR. For sure. But if you still have those and they're doing their job for you, and otherwise, I really think also the XplorIR is going to be exactly the first place that I would stop for most traditional teams, right? XplorIR, to your point, it's not a tech refresh. This is a huge quality of life upgrade. We're talking about the identification in the field of 5,600 plus vapors and
pretty
gases
much real time.
In pretty much real time. It is not seconds like your multi-array or your 5-gas meter, right? It's not going to help you find those materials as like an active monitor. But once you've identified that there's something above background, XplorIR is going to tell you what that thing is and quantify it. And that's just an absolute game changer on a response. Because before, all you really got was hazard classification. You knew something was there, but it was up to you, the responder, to figure out why and from where, and then what to do about it. But if you can just flip that script and know exactly what's there, you know where you can find the source container faster, easier, right? You can identify that leak faster, and you can get there, mitigate things, and get off scene so much faster with the help of the XplorIR. And it's like, it is not a tech refresh. It is a huge unmet need that has existed within our community forever. Vapor identification has been hard, and the XplorIR does it really, really well in the way that you would expect it to.
I'm glad you said that, because I've been saying the same thing, and I'm like, I just got validated.
Perfect.
I'm always like, you got to go with the gas FTIR. How is that even? Is there even any other option? Unless you're constantly doing like drug labs and things like that, and you need that trace analysis. But I'm always like, I'm lazy, right? Like, I'm a non-intervention specialist by every stretch of the imagination. So if I can grab a meter and walk around and it tells me what's going on, I'm grabbing that 100% of the time.
No, for sure. The VipIR is really going to feel like you jumped from like your smartphone 5 different versions up. You're going to be like, oh, I wish I had not spent so long waiting to upgrade. This feels amazing. Yeah, right. But the XplorIR is like getting your first smartphone from that flip phone. Like, you're like, I didn't even know this could happen. Right?
It's like going from an iPhone to an Android.
All right. Well, that's between you and your corporate lawyers as to which device you wish to disparage. But yes, absolutely.
Guys,
beautiful.
This was excellent. I think this is really going to move the ball for a lot of people out there, and I would like to thank both you guys and 908 Devices for coming on and explaining this new technology that's out there. If they want to get more information, who do they poke?
Yeah, 908devices.com would be the easiest part to start, and just feel free to email us info@908devices.com, and we'd be happy to discuss more.
Awesome. Great catching up with you guys. Hopefully I'll see you guys soon in the next conference. If anybody out there wants to go see them, they'll be at the booth more than likely, and you can chat with them directly.
All right,
guys.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Yeah.
The Hazmat guys, quite frankly, they have the best training out there. Everybody says so. Tremendous courses, fantastic trainers. Let's make Hazmat training great again.